Cast my mind back now. About 3 weeks ago, I was standing in a field in Herefordshire, and I was talking to a bunch of hackers about leap seconds, and it's not a normal thing. It was a very, very odd experience. It was great fun. I had an absolute ball about it. I'm not going to talk to you about leap seconds or universal coordinate time or any of that kind of thing. If you're into any of that, you can watch the video. But actually, what I'm going to talk about is the event itself, because the event itself was just mind-blowing. I've never really been to anything quite like it. So what I'm hoping to do is kind of explain a bit more about what it was like, and to go to Elliot's theme about volunteering. This is an entirely volunteer-driven event. Hopefully I can persuade you might want to go next time, because it's back again in 2020. So, I'll cover what electromagnetic field, or EMF as we'll call it, is, how I ended up there very briefly, and then what happened there, because what happened there is all the fun stuff. It really is an amazing place. Right, so firstly, electromagnetic field. Again, like you were saying, non-profit. It's really, it's a UK camping festival, but it's for hackers and makers and that kind of group of people. So this is from the wiki. They say it's hackers, geeks, engineers, artists, and craftsmen. So that gives you a good idea of the kind of people that, if you're going to put on a festival, they're going to make some really interesting stuff. That's not going to be dull. That's going to be quite good fun. So this is the fourth one they've done. They do them every 2 years. So the first one was essentially they wanted to go to Glastonbury. It was fallow year, so they couldn't. So they said, "Oh, we'll just go to a field and see what happens." And they ended up with about 500 people in a field and talks and crazy stuff happening. They built it up every single year, and this year it was 3 days of talks, workshops, installations, and activities. About 2,500 people, so it was a reasonable size, but not too big that you couldn't you could still cover the field fairly quickly. And it was in the grounds of Eastnor Castle Deer Park in Herefordshire, which will become important. So that's what it looks like. Of course, if you're having a kind of geek party, everyone's got drones and cameras and stuff, so there's some really good photographs. A lot of them are pulled from Twitter as well, so I have tried to credit people where I haven't got photographs of my own. So again, it's organised by volunteers and unpaid volunteers, and I was amazed by the amount of work that goes into pulling this thing off. I mean, literally, they would finish 2 years ago and start planning the next one. And there's been an enormous amount of effort and infrastructure and things put in place to make sure that this one worked. And again, volunteering and participation is really encouraged. It doesn't happen without that. So a quick bit about how I ended up there. My background is software, so I don't really do hardware. I can't wire a plug. I am rubbish in that respect. So it was a little bit intimidating. There's an awful lot of hardware stuff going on. I have done hardware projects, but as the software guy, essentially. Back in the kind of 90s, I did read this magazine called 2600, which was a lot about hacker culture. So I kind of enjoy all that kind of thing. I found it interesting, but I was never really involved in it for any great, huge amount. But last year, we were having one of our socials, which we have once a month. So I was having a pint with a friend of ours, and I was saying that I've always wanted to go to DEF CON. So DEF CON is the hacker conference that's in Las Vegas, and it's run every year. It's been going since the 90s, and there's loads of great videos online. If you ever want to sort of lose a weekend, just go Google DEF CON on YouTube, and you'll find so much interesting stuff. But he told me that actually there's a UK equivalent. There's this thing called electromagnetic field, or EMF. And essentially it's camping, but it's a bunch of hackers go camping. So that was the idea. And he told me about this. He says, there'll be one next year, this year. So pick your name on the mailing list, and then you'll hear more about it. So I did that and promptly forgot about it. So January comes around, and there's an email in my inbox, and it's EMF that's running this year. It's going to be August and September, running for 3 days. And we have a new location this year. So they've been in lots of different locations, underneath motorways and all sorts of crazy stuff. But, this year it's in Eastnor Castle Deer Park. So I spoke to my wife about this because it's camping. I want to take the kids. I want all of us to go. It's going to be good fun. So luckily, 10 years ago, we used to go to this same field, but it was in a different context. There was a couple of great festivals we went to there. So there's a lot of nostalgia about this place. So I said, do you want to go back? Like, come on, let's go. It's going to be. And she said, yeah, like, okay, great. Because it's just a couple of days before the kids go back to school. So we'll all get in a car, we'll all drive up to Wales and camp and then see what happens. So that was the easy bit. The tricky bit is getting tickets, because there's 2,500 tickets, but they seem to go very, very fast. Like in January, they sold out before I could get them. And also in March, they sold out before I could get them. So I thought, oh, this is going to be quite hard. So again, back at the social, I'm talking to my chap who knows how this works. He says, well, actually, there's another way you can do this. If you pitch a talk and they want to hear your talk, then they'll make sure that you are able to get hold of a ticket. So I thought, great, we'll give that a shot. So I pitched this idea of history of leap seconds. I have I have an interest in time and timekeeping and things like that, kind of proper nerdy stuff. But it's the perfect thing for this, because it's going to be a bunch of geeks in the field, and they'll love it. And what happened was, 3 months in, again, I forgot about this. I did this in January. I thought, oh, whatever. And then 3 weeks ago, I said, yeah, you're on the reserve list. And I went, shit. I've got 3 weeks to write a talk. But luckily, I had all the pieces. I had a whole bunch of notes and things like that. So I was on holiday at this point when the email came in. And I just pulled 3 AMs back to back for 3 weeks until I got my talk ready. So 2 weeks in, it's accepted and I'm on the list. So we buy the tickets and we're definitely going. 3 days to go, it's official. I've got to show up now because there's a tent and everything. There's going to be nobody in it unless I'm there. Yeah, so we show up. There's 4 of us this time, and I did the talk. So that's how I ended up there. But I want to talk about what it was like there, because it really was an extraordinary experience. So everyone's been camping, I presume, or has an idea what camping is. And festivals. Festival camping is slightly different. So you obviously have your tent, but there are bands on, or there's places you can go and see activities. Same kind of thing here. You have quiet camping and family camping. It's very, very good in terms of sort of diversity and inclusion. There's creche for kids and stuff like that. So it's really great if you wanted to sort of go and take part in all activities. Lots of youth activities as well. So essentially, all the things you would normally expect. This on day 1 was blank. And what happens is people come to camp, and you have villages. So shared interests, we have a village. So there's things like there was a maths village. So if you're really into maths, you all congregate around the maths village. The maths had all sorts of interesting activities. Some for kids, some with building all sorts of crazy structures and things like that. And speakers, and everyone runs their own little events in these villages. Also, hackerspaces tend to come en masse. So like maybe Sheffield Hackspace would come down and they would all camp together, but they would have their own activities going on in their village. But you mark it up in here, so it's kind of like a physical wiki, if you kind of know that. So you write on here, you draw a little line to where you are, so if people are interested in all the things going on here, you just go have a wander around. So this is kind of an example of what some of the villages look like. This was the Dutch. So the Dutch come, apparently the UK people go to the Dutch festivals and the Dutch come here, and also there's ones all the way around Germany and so on. They had lasers and smoke machines and a big sound system, as I remember. They're not all like that. Some are just tents. I mean, we were in family camping. It was very chilled out. But just to give you an idea of the kind of people, so they say hackers, geeks, engineers, artists, crafters. This is the kind of thing that was going on. So also it's organized by the same people, the same people with the same kind of DIY ethic. So it's people with a curious mind and are prepared to just take things apart and see what happens and build stuff and take on projects they really shouldn't, because they're enormous. So if you go camping, you would expect to find this kind of thing. So parking, camping, access to water, showers and toilets, all of that was there. However, reliable Wi-Fi is not common when you camp, but this thing here you see is not a toilet. This is actually a Wi-Fi base station protected from the elements inside the toilet. And it also had padlocks to avoid any obvious problems. And it has a little fire thing on here, so you can tell the strength of the Wi-Fi. And these were dotted all the way around. So you had, if you put a bunch of hackers in the field, they need 2 things. They need power and Wi-Fi. So they ran power to the site, came in here in January with diggers and stuff, and ran power cables and fiber and all sorts of stuff into the field. Then came back again 6 months later, and you can get power to your tent. So all of the tents had power and Wi-Fi. It's like it's extraordinary. And they can lay on things like charging for electric vehicles because they've already got power. They've laid the infrastructure. Again, volunteers, unpaid, doing it at their own time. Food was just a bunch of vendors on site, so very good coffee. They were really good. I visited them most days. And these burgers are good as well. They took from Mills. Drink, they had a pub. Of course, it's a geek pub, so it has an API. And it can tell you which beers are on, what's coming in. It had a Twitter account. The Twitter account was really funny. And of course, you got hackers going to the pub, so hackers like to solve problems. So we have a robot, essentially, well, it's a stick with a dress up. As in 5 little beer holders. It has there's an iPad sitting behind this, somebody on FaceTime, and they're sitting at the back of the pub and they control it, and they manage to set this thing in, order some beer, circle around, and send it back to themselves. This became normal after a while. It's like, yeah, okay, that's happening. Badges are a thing. So I have one with me, which I can show you later on if you're interested. So normally if you go to a conference, you'll get a lanyard or something like that. Hacker conference is slightly different. You get a PCB, essentially, a circuit board. And there's a one-up machine with this. Like at DEF CON, there was always, the last badge is always, you're always trying to outdo yourself. That's the theme of all of this, actually. Everyone is trying to outdo the previous one. And this year was the first time they put GSM on. The actual idea was they wanted to give pagers away to everybody, so everyone gets a pager, because that would be kind of retro and fun. And of course, to do pagers, you have to do GSM. When you have GSM, you might as well do a phone. That was the idea. But they built this thing in about 6 months, like from nothing. So you've got a GSM has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. It runs MicroPython, so it's completely open. So you can actually run apps. They had an app store. People were writing versions of Breakout and all sorts of stuff were appearing in the app store over the course of the weekend. 2 dating apps. Nobody knows why, but 2 dating apps appeared on there. But you had to assemble them, so this was fun. So I sat with my daughters and we sat in the pub actually and assembled these things. So they came in a bag. You could fit the screen on, the power, put it in the back, and eventually got them working. You can get your name on and stuff like that. But of course, it's very hackable. There's all sorts of bits and pieces that you can plug into this. I saw lots of people sitting coding stuff while we were at it. But of course, if you have GSM, you might as well build your own phone network because you need to be able to run it. So yeah, they had GSM network and DEF network. All of these badges connected, so you could ring the badges and ring people's. It was astonishing. In fact, they bought because GSM networks had to be legal. Well, you have to have a reason to do it. They bought a license for the weekend for 500 quid off a guy. That was the story. Okay. Great, I'm not sure you want to know anymore. So, but that was hilarious. I love the fact they went to that extreme. Another example of pop-up stuff. So this was not any of the kind of organizers. This was Birmingham Hackspace called FizzPop. They set up physical post boxes all around the venue. And you put something in the post box and have it delivered to somebody's village or tent. Physical things, including spam, which I thought was hilarious. So, I love that picture. But you can also, I like the fact you can send things to the future as well. So you can send things to the next EMF camp. So they'll hold on to it, and then somebody will get that 2 years down the line. Very fun. And you can also send them to Europe, because they obviously visit each other's things. These are just random things that happen to be about. So again, they weren't listed as, there's a website with a wiki and stuff, but most of the time you just wander around and find stuff. And these are a couple of the more interesting things I stumbled across. Firenado is exactly what you think it is. It's a flamethrower with a bunch of fans around it. And the fans just whip up like that, and it was really something. I mean, it chucked out a bunch of heat as well. This was a big Spectrum hooked up to the TV. So I don't know if you ever got this working. I was kind of just passing by it at this point, but I was trying to get it working. So you played all Spectrum games was the idea. So you jumped up and down the keys and you played these old games. They had a full arcade full of old classic video games. So I could have spent a long time in here. I love all these kind of games. But they had everything: Space Invaders, Frogger, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, all of the old stuff. They had Gauntlet, which is 4-player Gauntlet. I've not played in years, and this is so much fun. I had my wife and 2 kids all going like, Elf stole the food, all of that. It was really good fun. All on for replay, of course, as well. So the talks were advertised ahead of time, well, about 3 days ahead of time, as it turned out. But this is to give you a sort of variety. There was way more than this. It was 3 days of things, but just a variety of it. It's not all, man-in-the-middle attacks or hacking or things like that. It was, how to climb a mountain. That was fantastic. Turns out that there are mountains that have never been climbed or never claimed as being climbed. And if you climb it, you get to name it. So this guy had found a couple of these online. He's part of a club, and they all went camping. They were somewhere in India, I think. And he went there and climbed the mountain and got to the mountain. So that was quite good fun. And the last two, well, actually, you mentioned this in your talks, there's real-time closed captioning. It's amazing because if you think of a talk going live, somebody somewhere is correcting, well, the computers do most of the work, and then somebody has to actually correct all of this stuff. And it was fantastic. Really good, inclusive thing. So, yeah, all of the talks had that. I'm going to run through a couple of examples of some more interesting talks. The knitting network printer, this one went around the web it was quite popular. So Sarah hacked a knitting machine so that you could send it essentially a JPEG or a GIF file or some kind of image file, and it would knit the result. And the result is this thing here, which is fantastic. Wrote the whole thing. Animatronics, my kids love this one. So Matt Denton he does animatronics with movies. So he started out doing things for Jim Henson's Creature Shop and the Muppets and stuff like that. And then he did some of the Harry Potter animatronics as well. And then he went on to make BB-8 and do that in the Star Wars movies. So that was really cool. We're just kind of going through the kind of his progression in what he's been up to. But he also brought this. This is his pet project. It's the world's largest hexapod. And it came in the back of a car. I've never seen this thing pull in. And, there wasn't many vehicles on site because there was a lot of people moving around. But this thing came in and it was just in a big wagon. And they pulled the thing off the top, and he just looked like a crazy, what is this thing? But yeah, he got inside, and the arm, the legs come out, and it walks about. It's phenomenal. Workshops, again, I've just done a bunch of examples of the kind of things we're on. So yes, you can do man-in-the-middle attacks. If you want to do all that, if you want to get into hacking stuff, there's plenty of other stuff. Carving your own drinking ore, you totally want to do that. Right? That's a night out, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, really interesting. The fun balloon hats that glow. So I gave this talk. It's quite, in-depth talk about time and timestamps and how we manage time and all that. And an hour later, I've got a balloon hat on my head doing this. It was hilarious. It was, you never knew what was coming next. They had a film festival, so if you think you've got 3 tents essentially running talks and speakers and whatnot, but at night time they showed movies. So somebody made a short film at the previous EMF, so they screened that there. And this one, they actually screened Hackers the movie, which is brilliant. But the nice bit about it, they had a Q&A with the director, because there's a new Blu-ray edition coming out at the end in Christmas, so they got that show ahead of time. But the Q&A with the director was with Jake Davis, who was part of LulzSec, if you kind of know your hacker stuff. So it was really nice, kind of 90s hacker thing, and a very modern take on it. So yeah, that was good fun. And Hack the Planet was everywhere, because that was the thing from hackers. Hacky races, yeah. Make a vehicle, bring it along, drive it around, see if you can beat somebody else. Loads of fun. That most of the weekend. So nighttime. Null sector, they said, we built this thing, it's null sector. You'll come back at night time, find out what's this. So you don't know what shipping containers look like. So essentially what they did was they got a bunch of, again, volunteers, unpaid, got a bunch of shipping containers in. And then they added dry ice, lasers, and flamethrowers, and a bunch of DJs. And that was it. It was at night time, you just wandering around. And the lasers were amazing. They went on for miles, just. So I have a little video. I can't do it. It was noisy. I think that way. But it was kind of like Blade Runner, you're walking about there. This is like volunteers. They really went overboard, frankly. But a whole bunch of fun. Yeah. So, just as I do a straw poll with the family, just to get a feel for what I would like the most. So my 8-year-old loves the lasers and the fire and the hot chocolate because she got to walk around at night time with hot chocolate. and how to climb a mountain, which you like. I love null sector. It blew me away. They had a kind of night market and stuff going on there as well, and it was very Blade Runner. The hexapod was cool because I didn't expect that. I just showed up. And the arcade. My oldest, like PowerPoint karaoke, we have to do PowerPoint karaoke. I've been telling Mark about it. How this works is somebody prepares 5 PowerPoint decks, okay, and they've got titles, but that's all you know. And people volunteer to talk, but they don't know what they're going to talk about. You need alcohol. This is and you walk up and you have to present for literally 5 or 10 minutes on something you know absolutely nothing about. It's a real good icebreaker. We've got to do this at some point. If you love the animatronics talk as well, and the lightning talks, which I've not seen, but all of the talks were online. They were online almost immediately. It was amazing. And my wife liked Professor Elemental. He was doing some stuff in the tent. I saw the tent going like that, so that seemed to be good fun. The workshops. There was a talk about science and magic, which was kind of interesting, but he brought a Tesla coil out, which apparently no one was expecting, and he breaks half the AV stuff on day one, so that actually caused a lot of problems in the first 10. But yeah, all those things, it was loads of fun, and you couldn't help but enjoy yourself. It was really interesting stuff everywhere you looked, and phenomenal amount of work on behalf of the people who actually set this thing up, because they have been working for, there's a really good video where you could find out all the things, all the reasons why it almost didn't happen, and it's phenomenal. But again, it works because people volunteer, you know, and you get a chance. You can, if you want, volunteer at the event as well. You can do, 3 hours here, or 3 hours in the bar, or 3 hours doing something. But this thing happens because people volunteer. So, yeah, that's me, and that's a little plug for something that we've got coming up next week. So. Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. What was the health and safety?
That's a really good question. The people there seem to really know their stuff, but that's a very good question. They did their best to be legal and to do things right. And a lot of them are professionals in telecoms and, all of this. They're keen amateurs in some respects, but I honestly don't know. I presume they must have had to get things signed off and have fire inspectors, and they do try and do it right, but they do push the edges of what. A lot of it's showing off, to be honest. It's brilliant, But yeah, I can't comment on that. I was not part of the organisers, but I'm certainly able to go again. Yeah.
Do you know how they did the sort of captioning? Live captioning.
Apparently, it was an American company was involved, and they were trying to use it as a test bed for their own technologies. So I don't actually know who the company was. I could probably find out for you.
Because I heard a thing a while ago. It was kind of like nicely low-tech, high-tech solution.
I think that's how this works as well. There's a pass-through a computer. It's basically picking up the audio and getting the best guess at it, and then there were physical human beings that were doing corrections and stuff. So.
Yeah, this system I heard about, it was you had people who had trained a speech recognition program to recognise them, and they were re-speaking what they were hearing, so the speech recognition program recognise.
That's nice. Yeah, I also don't know how it works, but it would make a good talk. I would love somebody to come. There was talks about all kind of things, but that would be great to know how that worked.
Yeah.
It worked very, very well, actually. What's the website again? EMF. Or EMF. EMFcamp.org. On the front page, there's a subscribe, and you'll get an email in a couple of years. This was the maths tent. Who had, I don't know if you know, stand-up mathematician. Come across him? He's very good. Part of the festival that's spoken there. But he was at this, and they were making this thing. But I didn't know it lit up. I saw them making it, but at night time, of course, the whole place comes alive. Everybody loves lights and lasers and smoke and fire, and it's a crazy place. Cool. That's it. Yeah. All right. Okay. See you. Yeah.